Okay, this is part number 2 of Proposition 19. This is what I call the bad. I guess there are some good parts to it, but some people have been faced with some increases in property taxes when they have inherited property. So let's go into the details there. This section of Proposition 19 is the parent to child or grandparent to grandchild transfer. Now, to transfer those property taxes, that property must have been the parents' or the grandparents' primary residence or a family farm. Family farms do count in this. And if you're trying to transfer the property taxes from a grandparent to a grandchild, the parents have to have been deceased. So you can't go from grandparent to grandchild if the parents are still alive, if that makes sense to you. Okay? So the rules are that you would keep the same property taxes unless the current market value is over $1 million more than the parent-grandparent taxable value. Now, if the current market value is more than $1 million over the old taxable value, then that amount over $1 million is added to the current taxes. Okay? And the other rule is the child or grandchild, if they're inheriting the parent or grandparent's old low property taxes, they have to live in that property within 1 year of death. And then how do you get that exclusion to keep the property taxes low? You have to file for that exclusion within 3 years of death. If you need that form, contact my office. We can help you get that, but it is available from the county recorder's office, at least in San Mateo County it is. So let's look at some details or some examples on this. Okay, if you watched video number 1, you remember the scenario that I painted here. You had an individual, let's say parents, and they bought their Mid-Peninsula home in 1989 for $300,000. The average sales price of a house on the Mid-San Francisco Peninsula back in 1989 was $300,000. So this is a realistic number. I tried to make these scenarios as real as possible because many people are facing some confusion when they're inheriting property. So under Proposition 19, that house, remember, they paid $300,000 back in 1989. Under Proposition 19, those property taxes can increase by a maximum of 2% per year, every year. Now that brings the the taxable value up to $600,000 at the end of 2022. Where I'm shooting this in 2023, but I wanted to use some numbers that for a complete year. So that's the basis that I'm going to give you these examples on. Now, so the calculation, at the time of the property tax transfer, the parent's house has a taxable value of $600,000 and a fair market value of $2.5 million. So their taxable value is $600,000, but yet they could sell it for $2.5 million. The parents in this case have probably passed away, but the market value of that property is $2.5 million. So let's look at the consequences of that. So $600,000 taxable value, we talked about that. Proposition 19, it excludes the first $1 million over the taxable value. So what does that mean? That means that we have an excluded amount of $1.6 million. Okay, so let's look at the definition here. If the home had a market value of less than $1.6 million, the child, this would be child or grandchild, and you might find me using those terms interchangeably, but they all mean the same thing. Child, grandchild, parent, grandparent. The examples all apply to both of those. Okay, so if the home had a market value of less than $1.6 million, then the child would not have to pay any additional property tax. Now, in our situation here, remember I told you that the house, the current market value, what they could potentially sell the house for, is $2.5 million. So since the fair market value of that home is greater than the excluded amount of $1.6 million, the child would have an increase in their property taxes. So let's look at how much of an increase they would see. Okay, so we have here This is just my header showing the fair market value is greater than the excluded amount. Okay, so what's that look like? Fair market value, $2.5 million, minus the excluded amount means there's a $900 difference. So how much is the new property tax? Well, here you go. Let's do the calculation. $600,000 taxable value, $900,000 difference. Remember, that's $2.5 million minus the excluded amount of $1,600,000. That's a $900,000 difference. So that means your new taxable value is $1.5 million. So remember, I'm saying you, the child or grandchild has inherited this property because the value has been transferred to their kids or grandkids. All right. So they were paying property tax based upon $600,000. Now they're going to pay property taxes based upon $1.5 million. Now, I know this is a shocker to some people. They assumed they could keep their parents' old property taxes like they used to be able to, prior to the passage of Proposition 19, but that's not the case anymore. So how much more property tax will the child or grandchild be paying? We take the $600,000 old taxable value. That was so our property taxes in our area are 1.25%. Okay, if someone's watching this from outside of San Mateo County, yours might be a little different, might be a little lower. So the child's parents were paying $7,500 per year. Well, now the child inherits that property. Maybe their parents have passed away. Maybe their parents have actually transferred the property to their child and let them use the same old property taxes. And maybe the parents have moved to another state, for instance. Okay, they've transferred that value to their kids. Okay, their new taxable value is $1.5 million. Okay, so they're going from $7,500 a year property taxes that their parents paid or grandparents paid up to $18,750 in property taxes. So that's a big increase, especially if you're not expecting that. Okay, so that's the bad part of Proposition 19, what I call the bad, I guess you'd say. Next, I'm going to move on to what I call the ugly, because this has really caught a lot of people off guard. This is how you deal with rental property when you inherit that rental property after your parents or maybe your grandparents have passed away. So take a look at the third video, and I will explain what happens with inherited rental property relative to Proposition 19.